Hello, everyone, Facebook Live. How are you?
Hey.
We are the hosts of First Person PBS. We are the co-hosts of an amazing show that shines the spotlight on our heroes in the LGBTQIA communities. And we really focused on who they are and the awesomeness that they bring to the world. And a lot of the topics that we research are intersectional. And we're just here today to do a Facebook Live. We're gonna talk about how we came into ourselves and how we have grown into the beings that we are. And
How did we get this fly, though?
We're,
is the real question.
Right, how did we get this fly? We're gonna talk about that. So stay with us, we're gonna have fun. Thank you so much for watching. But I guess I wanted to get us kicked off by saying our names. So let's do a round.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Tonilyn, you can call me Tony.
I'm Donald Shorter.
I'm Aaryn Lang.
And I'm Kirya Traber.
So that's us. But I wanted to just get us into it already, right? So
Get us into it.
we talked about wanting to give our experiences about being 17.
Dear Lord.
And like, what did that look like?
Right.
What did we expect at that age versus what the realities were? So I'm gonna go first.
Go first.
So I was 17 in 1997.
Yeah.
And the big thing that
you
was
look great.
Stop it. And so the big thing that happened for me at 17 in 1997 for LGBTQIA visibility and how I connected to that was that Ellen DeGeneres came out as a lesbian on her show,
I remember,
I remember that.
which got canceled. But she did.
The airport scene.
The airport scene. So that was sort of huge. I want to say I was listening to like No Doubt and Alanis Morissette.
Right, of course.
And you know, that was sort of like all I had at that time in terms of being able to relate to someone who was gay or lesbian, you know. But I will definitely say that like my expectations around the world at that time were pretty much what my parents told me to do.
And where'd you grow up?
Jersey.
Jersey.
That's right.
And so the reality was that I probably had, at that time, I was out to the school. At the age of 16, I took a boy to the homecoming dance.
Way ahead of your time.
Way ahead of my time. But at the same time, I was like the only one.
Right.
So that's what sort of 1997 at 17 looked like for me. What was it like for you at 17? Who wants to go next?
I think I'm the youngest one here. So I was 17 in 2009.
Yesterday.
It does not feel like yesterday. I was 17 in 2009. What was it like in 2009 for me? I think I was definitely closeted in all of the possible ways, but things had definitely changed as far as, I think, the media landscape around LGBT existence and what you can see on TV. I want to say on my birthday, the most popular song, just to give a more of an idea of the feeling of the time, was by Flo Rida, which kind of feels ancient in this moment. And Barack Obama was our president.
Wow.
So things looked very, very different.
And
this
where
was
were you
when
living?
Columbus, Ohio.
right.
So the marriage equality fight was still really strong at this time. I think that was probably the most accessible thing people could talk about as far as LGBT communities were concerned at that time. So things looked very different for me. I went to a performing arts high school that was like a campus style. We didn't have sports. We had a dance team. So LGBT people at my school they were kind of synonymous
With the
back
dance
in the
team.
day. Yeah. Well, not just the dance team, but just, you know, we weren't doing anything but dancing and being cute and creative. So it was a pretty gay set, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of lucky. How about you, Tony?
In 1998 was when I was 17. I was in San Francisco, California. So I actually grew up with a lot of gay kind of in my face with gay pride flags and stuff. And so living really close to the Castro, being around it a lot. However, I was straight and femme presenting with hair down to my ass.
I've seen the picture.
Went to a private Catholic school, and also I had worked at the local church, so I was not queer identified at the time. I may have kissed a girl or two. But it was it was very different. And I think at that same year, 1998, an organization that I'm close to now, it was the very first San Francisco. It was a national queer arts festival, which is huge now.
Yeah.
But they had the very first one in 1998. Of course, I didn't know about it
No
at the
idea.
time. I was too busy singing. What's the Aerosmith song that came out?
Don't want to miss a thing? No.
And I don't
Don't
want to
want-
miss
yeah.
a thing. Yep, that also no doubt was huge.
Yeah.
Better than Ezra, Weezer, Green Day. I mean, and then also there was a Filipino classified records label in South San Francisco. So I was listening to a lot of Filipino R&B artists at
Love
the
that.
time in the Bay Area, San Francisco.
Not bad.
Yeah, so it was really interesting because my experience of it, I didn't know what was going on other than there's the Castro, and I wasn't a part of it just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 17 in 2001, which kind of does feel like yesterday, but then also like 5,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was between my urban experiences. So my first formative years were in the Bay Area, and then I was whisked away to a small town in Northern California. So I had this very like rural life, like literally raised chickens, y'all. Like it's not a joke.
Did you kill them?
I did. I was a chickenitarian. I did not eat chickens. That's the opposite of a chickenitarian.
Okay, I was like, wait.
No, I sold their eggs and I showed them at the fair.
Oh, dear Lord, the fair.
Love that.
But I was also, it was a very, very strange environment because it was like simultaneously everything you associate with rural America in terms of like literally Confederate flags, and then also everything you associate with liberal lefty California, meaning like growing lots of weed and talking about liberation in a different way. So it was a very interesting place. Some of the things that were influencing, like I did have an understanding of the global, or at least the national landscape. The year before, in 2000, a lot of folks have heard of like Proposition 8 that was struck down eventually in California before marriage equality, but there was a predecessor to that, Proposition 22, and that was the first law on the books in California that labeled marriage exclusively between a man and a woman. And I remember I had a radio station at the school at the time, and I wasn't like necessarily out. It was one of those things where everybody else was telling me that I was part of the family. I was like, whatever.
What were you doing?
But then I got on my radio station at 7 a.m. Nobody was listening at all. Nobody cared. But I was like, I have an announcement. There's a proposition coming up on the ballot. Tell your parents to vote no on Proposition 22. And then the following year, I will say, Our Lady Aaliyah passed away. So I remember in May of 2001, it was, you think you know, but you have no idea. This is the diary of Aaliyah.
Oh my
And I was like, I am in. I'm
good.
setting my VHS to record. I need to save this.
MTV.
And it was like 5 minutes later, it felt like in August that she died in this plane crash. Conspiracy theories abound. But other plane crash that was even more significant, I think, for me and for the country was September 11th. That happened that year. I was on my way to school. When I got to school, it was like classes canceled. Everyone went to the gymnasium, was watching news all day. And then kind of following on the trend that I had started on the radio station the year before, there was a vigil, quote unquote, at my school that was about, bringing together solidarity and mourning the loss, but then also was very, very pro-America in this way that already made me nervous.
Yeah.
Already made me think about, is there gonna be a draft? Who are we calling the enemy here? Are we gonna bomb people? I don't know how I feel about that. And so I held a sign that I made myself that said Student for Peace. And it started some arguments, and it was really a mark of me setting myself aside as an activist, and it kind of continued from there. So that was me at like 16, 17.
Wow.
I was in 4th grade. I was just like, what was I doing in 2001? I was mad that my mom didn't pick me up the morning of the Twin Tower attack, because so many people were getting called out of school because their parents were afraid, and my mom was not one of them. So.
She's like, you good.
This has been a little history lesson for me.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
I'm curious about everyone. So now that we've sort of given a picture of our young selves, whether we were out or not, or nascently out, I think you were the most advanced. You're like, I'm taking a boy to prom. what did we expect our lives to be like now? What is it? How many years later is it for all of us, right? We're all like in varying degrees of adulthood. How far or close do we feel like we are to the people we thought we'd be, or identifying how we thought we'd identify?
It's so funny. I started reading journals of when I was like 15, 16, 17, and it's sort of crazy to see the level of awareness around who I was and how I wanted to exist in the world, but my circumstances of being in suburbia and my family life, you know. But there was always a hope and a desire that I could like really just do it, you know. Yeah. And even after moving to New York, it took me some time to like evolve, you know. But now I definitely feel like I'm able to exist in the world in a way that is like the closest to how I really wish I could, you know. But for issues that are related to like legislature, and also like personal safety.
Yeah.
You know, that like I have this utopian feeling that like maybe one day we'll all be able to get there.
You feel safer.
But there's still yes, but it's like, you know, but I definitely feel like my reality is like, yes, I feel like I'm living sort of in always where I want it to be.
Amazing. Such a clear vision from such a young age.
I was like, I was reading it. I'm just like, oh my gosh, wow.
And also, if you're watching this and you have comments and questions for us, or you want to weigh in about being 17 now or 17 then, feel free to let us know.
I want to hear from people who are 17.
Yes.
Yes, because we're going to be taking your questions and comments, and we're going to be talking about it too. So please join in.
Yeah. So, what about for the rest of us? Like, what do we think we would become? How do we feel about it?
I just had my birthday last week, and
Happy
so
birthday,
around
Leah.
around that time I always think about my past selves, and I think this rotations around the sun always bring this up for me, and I also feel very similarly. I feel like I'm really living in alignment. I'm living in my passions. And the thing is, like, my gender presentation is very different from 17, but I'm still the same Toni. Like that, I still feel like that tenacious 17-year-old that moved to LA to become a singer is still present.
That's true.
And is living their best lives and doing their best to live their best lives. And I feel like I can do that better now. Like I feel like more aligned. Granted, of course there's always stuff and there's always things to work through, but I feel like this is probably who I always needed to be, and I was just playing myself, you know? And I finally am feeling way more comfortable. And so I think a lot about the changes over time and what growth needed to look like. And then really it was about me getting out of my own way and just coming to terms and accepting myself, because I feel like I was so focused on helping other people accept me or making sure that they accept me or appeasing to them. And I learned over time, like, if I'm not even happy with myself, if I can't even do that for myself, like, I won't have energy to help others understand me either. So yeah, I don't know. I feel, I don't know if I can say that because I'm in my, oh my God, late 30s. But sorry, I just had a moment. But like, I think, I don't know. It's like that retrospect, like you can say that. But I'm sure if you caught me at 25 or 21, I would be like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing,
What do you think your 17-year-old self would think of you now?
I think my 17-year-old self would be very proud of me.
Really?
And also be like, girl, what are you doing? Like, who is you? You were supposed to have babies. You were going to get married. You wanted 3 kids. You wanted to have a little house in Silver Lake. Like, I think my 17-year-old self would question and then totally accept it and be like, you're rad. I'd like to think. Aaryn?
Let me think. I don't think this is what I saw my life looking like in any capacity when I was 17. I was super like repressed and super just unsure of like who I was and what was even going to happen for me. I was a terrible student in high school because I was so preoccupied with all of the things that were happening inside of me. So I don't know. I think I just wanted to be able to be alive. Like I was always trying to vision myself alive. And at that time, being gay was like the thing that I was so afraid of. I had no idea, that I was going to land somewhere completely different than that at that time. And I think for my 17-year-old self, if I'm being honest, my 17-year-old self would be ashamed and embarrassed of who I am today. And that's not because there's anything to be ashamed or embarrassed about, just knowing where and who I was at that time.
Right.
I would feel, at 17, I would feel so, I think, horrified by my existence today. I think with just how public it's been, and how it has been public and who I have been while it's been public, I think I probably would have died at 17. And I've been many people since 17. And yeah, this isn't what I saw for myself, because I just didn't imagine that I would ever get out of my own way, or I would ever be able to even just show up fully, for my life. I just don't think I thought I was possible, so.
I don't think I thought I was possible.
Yeah, I know I didn't think I was possible, honestly, because it took me a few years to
That's
even
incredible.
figure that out.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
It is.
Even considering the fact that like you were 17 in 2009.
Nine.
Most
Yeah,
recent.
I mean,
of all
things
of us.
that changed a lot, but in Ohio,
Right.
Yeah.
where I'm from, we see the world change a lot, and we may talk about we've changed, but people are still holding on to these very dated ideals, these very dated just beliefs about other people. So I had parents. I had a mother who was afraid of what she saw in me. So she spent a lot of time trying to, keep me in a little rigid space that I was afraid to move out of. So in 2009, I'm still looking at blogs and just listening to like gay people tell their experiences late at night with headphones on, like change into something else when I hear someone in the hallway, because things had changed, but the conversations and the shame and the ideals had still carried on. And I think, of people that are 17 today, I'm sure, even though we can talk about all the, progress we've seen and we've been able to age into it, people are still experiencing the same shames and things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up such an interesting point about the difference between like being able to talk about it like publicly in like on platforms or like in large conversation spaces, whether they be digital or in person, but like to have a conversation with a loved one, like that remains difficult for young people, I think, regardless of where you are, because our families have so many expectations for us to be like little versions of them. Whatever that is, little better versions.
I want to move us along a little bit because we don't have too much time left. We're like, we're getting numbers from the producers over here.
That's a great segue, though.
So, great segue into like, this next part. Like, how have our definitions of love and understanding grown and changed over time? And we're speaking about that a little bit. And so like just for these last two sections, if maybe like we can just comment on them. I know it's going to be hard to do, but like, how have our definitions of love and understanding grown and changed with us? You two at home, let us know. But then, given what we've all talked about, right? Like, does it actually get better? Because sort of when we were coming up, you had the whole "it gets better" campaign, or So I think that's something that like
it wasn't for Black people.
No.
So I won't say that I had that,
But it's
wasn't for a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah.
But do we think it gets better, or is that just something that's accessible to a certain class or sect of people?
I think we all have, not all, let me not say, I think some of us have the option to shift our circumstances.
Yeah.
Some of us have the option to shift our minds around our circumstances. So I would say for those of us who do have those options, things have gotten better. We have been able to get better in our circumstance. But some people actually don't get the same chance for it to get better. So I think, again, like on these levels with us being able to talk about it here, we can say we've been able to change our situation, but everybody doesn't get to say that. And I think it's just important to understand it doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen miraculously around you. You have to either be sick of it to the point that you change, or you just want to see something different and prove to yourself that it's possible.
Yeah, I think there's so many because we have an intersectional, and love that word, thank you, Kimberly Crenshaw. We have that word, we have now to think about like it gets better, like there's no one narrative for who it is applying to. Like, is it gonna get better given your race, your class, your gender, your where you're living in the country, if you're in the country of the United States of America? Like, there's so many different factors. I do think that I'm able to carve out a space for myself as the kind of queer woman that I want to be, which has also evolved. Even though I was in many ways like out and visible in some ways in my late teens, that woman is different. That understanding of how my gender should be presented and like whether like this kind of femininity is something I can put on has shifted and changed. And that's something I have the benefit of, because of my positionality, I've been able to find community that affirms my self-determination around that. You know, folks that say like, yes, you can wear those lashes and those high heels and still talk about radical liberation. Folks that have been like, yeah, there's room for you to talk about, you know, Black power and queer identity in the same sentence. And there's room for you to question political movements and just want to have like a chill dog partner lifestyle situation. And these are the nuances of those. Like, that's what I have been so grateful for about aging and with community. Like, not by myself, not alone, isolated on a mountain in a tree, but like I moved to New York City in 2011 and have built around me a community of folks that really fill out my definition of love, of queerness, of self. I don't know that I could have done any of that by myself. Like, if I was just staying in a rural area, or if I wasn't being social, being challenged, being pushed, having people like come and like confront me and call me out when necessary. Like, that has been such a huge part. I think I knew that then, that community was important at 17 or in my youth, but like, I didn't see it. I didn't know who was like me. So it took me years and moving across the country to find my people. And that's been the most foundational shift in my life. The biggest love story of my life has been finding my people.
I mean, I just moved recently out of New York City. And so this notion of like, does it actually get better? Who does it get better for? And now I'm thinking about visibility in terms of being in a city space where there's lots of gay bars and lots of radicalized thinking and accessibility to that, like being queer in numbers, like, right? Versus being in a rural or suburban area. You know, like what, like, you know, thinking about these younger LGBTQIA people, and it's like, wow, like, yeah, what is this idea? What is this phrase? How is that relatable to them? Does it get better? It's like, can they exist, you know? And so I've been trying to like say, okay, like I have to, in many ways, like, continue to be visible and to be present in the same way that I was on these, you know, mean city streets, you know. Now there's a lot of back roads and highways,
Watch
you know.
yourself.
Watch yourself. So there's, I mean, but it's still, you know, there's still this idea of I have to be safe. You know, when I lived in Bushwick, I still had to be, you know, careful around my surroundings at night. You know, if you live in a certain neighborhoods here in the city, there's same rules still apply. You know, but I've been thinking about this. Does it actually get better? And obviously, because we have things like the media, which is super accessible online, cell phones, you know, internet, you know, like I couldn't listen to someone in a closet on the internet and hearing things and being reaffirmed in that way, you know, like where, you know, I was in band and color guard and those things. So I was able to find community and acceptability and be affirmed in those ways. But I think it's hard, that statement, does it get better?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult because we all experience love differently, and like what love looks like to us individually is so different. So we can talk about community love, we can talk about self-love, we can talk about immediate blood relatives. I mean, there's so many different types of love, and I think, you know, Kirya, I agree with you. My community and the love that I feel from them, that wouldn't have been possible. Also, if I didn't come up in the Bay Area, you know, I feel like I did have possibility models. And if not, we were some of them.
Me too, before New York, the Bay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Shout out to Pam Henderson and the Queer Arts Festival.
Yeah, so there was a lot of possibility models that I think I could look to be like, oh, okay, this could be what queerness is. Do I like it? Do I not? Do I want it? Do I, not? And I wonder sometimes when we say that language of, oh, it gets better, I think it really diminishes or dismisses the experience of someone in that moment. So we're like, oh, it gets better. So we're telling someone to just wait for it. And like you said, a lot of people don't have the luxury of waiting,
moving to another place too, the funds.
Of being able to get up and leave and figure out where they can be accepted. And I think a lot about that on a macro level, but then I also think about internally, like, how do we find better ways to accept ourselves? And as we do that, where are we finding the love and the support? And when I was 17, that was not a possibility. I, really was far removed from my family at that point. That was closely tied to religion and Catholicism, and figuring out thinking that I had to lose my family in order to gain a queerness, in order to feel like I can be that. And I think now, having lived a bit, being able to say, you know what, it actually does get better, but the only way it can get better, I think, is if we find better ways to have community and connect people. And I think that's what media is doing for us these days. So while people are, connecting online, they might also be dealing more with bullies online too, but there's still a way to connect. And I think that was lacking back in the day, the connection. And I think we have more of that these days.
So that's the gift of this moment.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is kind of turning things and we're wrapping up, but I'm just curious, do you think that this social media and connecting has helped your families grow as well and your community?
I love that question.
Yeah, my parents are in their 80s, right? So my father is really big. He will get on the internet. He knows how to navigate those spaces. And I think him having access to that can maybe fill in some gaps.
Yeah.
And my family's been able to, my parents, I'll speak specifically for them, that they've been able to maybe see shows like this
Right.
or educate themselves.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I think my mom's seeing me in community on social media.
Seeing that you have.
Yeah, seeing that not only am I not alone, that there are people that care about me and people like me and older than me that have lived and have fought for the similar things that I have and do. I've never even thought about that, but I think her being able to just witness that and educate herself as well. She's in her 40s, so she's definitely already on the computer minding her own business. But, being able to educate herself and see the community I'm a part of, I think that has helped a lot.
Great. Yeah. I've had similar experiences with aunts and uncles. Some of them not great, but most of them great.
Yeah.
Extended family is something.
My mom does not know how to use Facebook, but my aunt shows her photos from Facebook. So, and also just saying, oh, First Person PBS, then all of a sudden she's like, oh, you're on TV? And she gets all excited about it. And
I'm your aunt.
it's like, okay, so you're going to give me crap about other things, but because of this, you can accept me or see me in a certain way. And I think that's support I never thought I could get.
It's a way in for them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, conversation starter for sure.
Absolutely.
I'm sure she'll be watching this episode later, So, any last thoughts before we wrap up? This has been really fun. I love sitting and chatting with y'all.
I want to do it more.
I know. We should do it more.
My last thought is love is a verb.
Yo,
Okay.
real talk.
My last thought is, find me in the comments because I got some things I want to say.
Right?
I didn't get to.
Let's continue it. Yeah, for sure.
My last thing is what I'm having to now practice is just continue for anyone who's watching and for anyone who is young or old, wherever you are, we have to continue to be visible. Whether that's in a city space or rural space or a suburban space, is that the more visible we are, and it may be scary, but that's how we can continue to grow in numbers. That like, you know, it's just super important, and that's sort of what I'm faced with now. So I want to put that out there.
Be safe and visible.
Right.
Well,
I'm thinking the same
Absolutely,
thing.
be safe and
Yeah,
visible.
if you have
Be
allies.
safe
Be safe
and
first.
visible.
Yes.
Well said, everyone. Thank you for chatting. Thank you for joining us. This has been First Person PBS Live from Facebook headquarters. Catch us in the comments. Keep joining us.
And YouTube.
And YouTube.
And follow us on Facebook
And
Watch.
Facebook
And
Watch.
Facebook Watch.
Facebook
And
Watch.
Instagram.
And Instagram.
And Twitter.
Okay, all right.
Catch us.
All right, bye.
Bye.